towards hiring an integrity commissioner was appointed to that, what I'm calling a secret panel. You can take exception to that or you can choose not to. But a mayor's secret panel on accountability and integrity. I think they call that an oxymoron. A secret panel with a secret membership, with secret minutes, secret to the public, and secret to a good number of members of this council. This secret panel have met for over a year. And quite frankly, I'm aghast if the best recommendation that they can put before us is to punt this to the city manager for further investigation and benchmarking to be conducted over the next 100 years. And to your point, Madam Mayor, yeah, well, it'll probably be 100 years, but anyways. And to your point, Madam Mayor, and you are quite correct, Deborah Dubinovsky was not here in 2007, and so that is an error on my part. However, last year, the city manager made it abundantly clear that she stood behind that report and that she believed it was the right recommendation. In 2007, it was a conclusion, but apparently in 2009, it was a recommendation. Now, whether or not I seconded that motion, God, we second motions and move motions around here all the time. I couldn't tell you. In 2007, if I put my signature to something, I can assure you that I thought it was the right thing to do in 2007. But the world unfolded quite differently between 2007 and 2009. We watched what was happening in other municipalities, whether that was Vaughan or the city of Mississauga. The world had changed. And this council had an opportunity in 2009 to recognize that change, to recognize the change in public's expectations around not only how this council would conduct themselves, but how members of the public would have an opportunity to simply ask a question without a formal complaint process that, quite frankly, you have to put up your firstborn to actually fill out the application. It is cumbersome, and you absolutely have to have evidence of some wrongdoing before you even file the investigation. But regardless of the recommendations in the report, and I appreciate knowing what other municipalities are doing, but this is a municipality that has always prided itself on being ahead of the curve. So we're either ahead of the curve and we do the right thing for taxpayers, and we continue to do the right thing for taxpayers, or we continue to hide behind a list of municipalities that have a variety of issues that they're facing themselves and a variety of sizes, or you, which by the way, the list that is not complete, just through you, Madam Mayor, to whoever produced it, there was a presentation by the Board of Trade where it indicates 16 municipalities, and Oakville wasn't on that, so 17. Well, that's fine. I'm just pointing out that there is a discrepancy between our information and information that was circulated by the Integrity Commissioner for the City of Toronto. But 16 municipalities in this province, according to the information I have, hired integrity commissioners in a variety of different formats in 2010, and many more are looking at this. Yet something as simple, quite frankly, as recommending to this council an appropriate amount of money to include in a 2011 budget hasn't been done. I have a copy of the presentation made recently to the Brampton Board of Trade by the Integrity Commissioner of Toronto, and there is no evidence in that it's not working as stated by the Mayor many times, including at the FCM minutes that we see in H1. There may be and always can be room for improvement, but that's not to suggest it's not working in Toronto. And nobody ever suggested that we should have the same model as Toronto anyways. So I asked the question of the Mayor's secret panel, how difficult is it to survey 16 municipalities or to utilize other resources like the draft ethics scan report to determine a reasonable amount to include in a budget? Instead, this too has been punted to the city manager. The same city manager who, when charged with the responsibility of addressing our administrative staff requirements, made a public presentation to suggest that the cost of delivering the space would cost upwards of $285 million. There was something that absolutely alarmed this community when we looked at what the Region of Peel was delivering administrative staff space. It was an inflammatory presentation that caused a whole flurry of, thank you, I will stop. If five members of council, I shall withdraw the statements. If 5 members of council have been meeting secretly for over a year, then they should know how other municipalities are including public consultation and/or public participation. Yet the mayor's report before us is recommending to council that we endorse a go-forward that does not contemplate any public involvement, consultation, or oversight. There have been statements made here today, but there is nothing in this report to suggest that that is going to happen. The report, in my view, from the mayor demonstrates a blatant disregard for the call to action that has been so evident throughout the most recent election and in the media. Most importantly, this report lacks the kind of decisive action that residents and taxpayers in the city of Brampton deserve. If Caledon's mayor can walk the issue onto a council agenda, and she did, it was not the matter of an investigator, it was the matter of an integrity commissioner. I sit next to Mayor Morrison at the region. I know full well what she had advanced and when she did it and in what manner. It passed unanimously. And if Caledon can do it, then Brampton should be doing it now. We should have done it a year ago. I have an amendment to the mayor's recommendation. I have copies of it here for the city clerk if he wishes to distribute it. And I believe that the amendments more accurately reflect the expectations of our taxpayers. It is an amendment that provides for public consultation and public oversight. Mayor Fennell states that her action plan ensures that all members of council will have an opportunity to participate in the debate. Well, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but given that you have been meeting secretly for over a year, I find it very hard to believe that those you have excluded will be given an equal opportunity. I am, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Before I go on with the list, on a point of order, I want to, I've been named a lot of, throughout this recent deputation, and I have 3 words for Councillor Moore: cut the rhetoric. We aren't hiding behind the facts that 98% of municipalities haven't gone forward. I don't accept your recommendation and a quick scan. It calls for a small committee to be formed. I think all the information needs to come back to all members of council, not to some small committee. I take exception to words like hiding behind and secret, and the Mayor of Caledon did share with me, Councillor, that she had an integrity commissioner. I said, that's terrific. What model did you use? She said, we used AMO. I then said to the executive director, Pat Vanini at AMO, please explain to all of us as we were gathered in that context of the Ontario caucus, how were you able to provide that? Because indeed, Ontario municipalities have been asking AMO if they would consider forming an integrity commission role to serve the needs of the members. Pat Vanini, executive director of AMO, said, I'm sorry, that's mistaken. We provide at AMO the investigator role. You will recall, Councillor, all members of council, that the legislation required each municipality in Ontario to retain an investigator for closed session. This council did. We had the option to use AMO's or to hire our own. Some of the municipalities surveyed in the City of Toronto report on checking and confirming with their clerk, they in fact have an investigator, not an integrity commissioner, which really goes to show how complex this issue and subject is. I appreciated the words of the Brampton Board of Trade, and I would encourage you, Council, to stay focused on the issues. There is no rhetoric in my comments. It's time to move forward in public, have the report come back in public to all members of council. I don't accept the amendment. I consider it contrary, and that's my point of order. I would also like to say you're using the example of the Mississauga inquiry. Council, that is an inquiry about an alleged breach of the conflict of interest legislation. There is no multi-million-dollar inquiry anywhere in Ontario for an alleged breach of the respective council's code of conduct. So I think we need to just move forward, stick to the issues, and not try to flavor it with a variety of adjectives. Thank you. Well, I know, but the councillor doesn't want to leave the floor. We do have a list, councillor. Do you have a point of privilege? You did indicate you were.
I have an amendment to your,
Well, your amendment's before me. It's I don't accept the amendment as mover of the motion.
I still have a right to read the amendment, Madam Mayor.
When we get to the voting, we'll go through it.
I have the floor. I said I was moving an amendment. You asked me if I was finished.
You said yes.
Incorrectly signaled yes.
Another mistake.
Yes, I'm just full of mistakes today, but I'm not full of rhetoric. Can you, Mr. Clerk, could you please activate my microphone? Well, I guess until I read the amendment.
Well, had you been provided it to all members of council, perhaps they could have read it 2 hours into the meeting.
Invited all members of council to participate in your.
Council, I'm going to ask council to.
Could you please activate my.
Madam Moore, I'm going to ask all members of council to respect that you are in the chamber of the city of Brampton, and we will have decorum in this chamber. If you want to tussle, do it out in the hallway.
Not tussling, Madam Mayor.
Don't even try.
Activate my microphone so I can finish speaking.
Well, you said you were finished, councillor, and I want to be very clear. Councillor, I want to be very clear that I chose a small group of councillors to work with. It's the mayor's prerogative to establish a working group, and I chose people who I believe are focused on the best interests of the city, not on scoring political points. So now we'll move to the next speaker, Councillor Sprovieri. Well, this is asking a committee minute. It's not even seconded.
Yes, it is. That's seconded by Councillor Bob Fowling, and I have to sign the seconded copy.
So I don't have a proper motion before me. Perhaps you could pass it along. So that will, thank you. The clerk will review it. Again, our report calls for no special committee. This rule is contrary because it calls for a committee. The clerk can clarify. We'll move down the list. Councillor Sprovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Am I able to ask a question of Mr. Bryden at this point, if I can?
Well, the delegations have technically completed their.
Well, we had agreed to hold our questions
Yes.
till after everyone spoke.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Mr. Bright, could I ask a question of you, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for appearing before us today, and I really appreciate that you actually suggest some concrete examples of where you feel an integrity commissioner would come in handy and useful. Now, the question I have for you is, most of the items that you mentioned, 5 or 6 items, I believe were mostly council decisions. So I'm kind of like to understand whether you're looking for a person of some nature, an integrity commissioner, that would have the powers to investigate council decisions and possibly overturn council decisions. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm not saying overturn, but I'm saying being a part of. It's for your own protection, so that you don't have a situation of optics, which is what often happens. Something goes out there, it's in the press, and there's an appearance that something is not right. It doesn't look after what's called the smell test. And so my suggestion was to have somebody who is a part of the decision-making, not to be making the decision, but to counseling, so that you don't get into trouble
Well,
from the
you know,
get-go.
and thank you for the clarification. And, through the chair, it appears to me that what has brought this issue forward is basically the mayor's gala that's been questioned by throughout the campaign and previously. I mean, we always have an open door policy here that any member of the public can appear before us and delegate and say, look, we feel that there's some optical problems here in the city of Brampton that with some of the decisions this council has made, and we feel that we need to have things clarified. And we're not hiding anything here. As far as I'm concerned, we're making decisions that are the best for the taxpayers. We're here to provide a service and to safeguard and to spend the taxpayers' money in the best possible way.
With respect, I have been in front of this council on at least 2 times, and I talked to you about for instance, the Southwest Quadrant
Right.
proposal, and how it was put together, and how it was deeply flawed.
Well, that's your opinion.
It was our opinion,
It's-
but can you tell me why this city of 500,000 plus people only got 3 interested parties in one of the most exciting potential developments in the country at that time?
During the worst economic recession, thank you, Mr.
No,
Bryden.
no, that is not the point. It takes a long time, as you know, Madam
does.
Mayor, to put anything together. It
Yes.
doesn't happen overnight.
Yes.
The development industry did not shut down.
Well, thank you very much for your clarification. And Madam Mayor, as you know, I have seconded the motion, and I clearly believe that we're headed in the right process. I don't believe that there's any great urgency since the only matter that's really being questioned is your gala event, and I don't think that anyone is going to skip town in the next 100 days or 90 days or 6 months and head for Bolivia, where I don't believe that. So, but one thing I'd like to really address too in this process of the ethics commissioner is, when we go through an election process, I've gathered that this election has been one of the worst elections in my 22 years in office. It has been terrible. There have been made accusations and by candidates in my unfounded accusations about individuals around this table, and some of us were like sitting ducks. They could write in. I have a website that one of my opponents that he wrote all kinds of untruths about in the campaign. I believe that when we go through this process, that we should have the ethics commissioner also encompass elections and candidates that run for office to make sure that they run an ethical campaign, that they don't go out there and make false accusations, make unproven, unfounded accusations. To me, that is the greatest of all the concerns I have. How some people around this table have been accused of terrible things, unfounded, unproven, and yet they were able to do that. I believe that in this process, and I'm certainly going to push for, that when we have people like that standing up for public office to represent the public, that these people should not be permitted to run in elections again when they're found to be making unethical campaigns and accusations. So, Madam Mayor, I stand with my seconding the motion, and I look forward through this process because it's going to be a long, interesting, and to make sure we do it right. And because there's many, many issues that have to be covered. And by just saying let's hire one today, and since we don't have any code of contacts at other municipalities, I don't know what this guy's going to do or this person's going to do, because right now we don't have any guidelines that he can investigate. As far as we're concerned today, we have done nothing wrong. If anybody had done something wrong, according to today's rules, I'm sure that we would have the proper authorities knocking on our doors. And so, as far as we're concerned today, and we're a clean council. And once we come up with the new rules and regulations, and we hire the person, and then he can work with those guides and regulations. And if anyone does anything wrong, then that's when they take action. But even if we were to hire one today, I don't know what he would be doing when he doesn't have the regulations before. So, Madam Mayor, I think we're doing the right thing, and we're going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and very true, the allegations that were made in the election and then printed in the paper. I was accused of skipping the only televised debate when in fact we participated in 4, brought it to the attention of the newspaper that made that report, but they have failed to make that correction. Why, just Sunday night, I interacted with the federal minister, who said, "Mayor, what's that I read? You skipped your debate." I said, "Well, that was an incorrect statement, never corrected. In fact, we participated in 4, perhaps someday." Well, the public knows the truth. Let's keep moving down the list. Councillor Palache.
Well, where do you start? I guess I'll start by saying I was a member of the secret society that met with Mayor Fennell. I think we met 4 times within that year, so it's not like we met daily or anything. We had 4 meetings. My understanding was why the 4 people that voted for the Integrity Commissioner back in November, 4 or 5, I think it was 4, I don't, maybe it was 5, they were already in favor of an Integrity Commissioner, so there was no need for them to be part of that secret group. I love it when people use those words when they're on the other side. I guess the secret meetings of the 4 councillors, when they met and had their secret meetings behind closed doors, they weren't secret meetings. They were just regular meetings. And I thought the meetings we were having with the mayor was a regular meeting. I think the rights, and I did say this to a couple of councillors when they had complaints, is the mayor is the mayor. The mayor has the right to set up committees. The mayor has the right to speak about different issues, and the mayor has the right to ask for certain councillors to meet with her. The same as other councillors on any given day, as long as it not 6, can have councillors meet with them to discuss a subject. The reason that we didn't come up with a decision was because it was too important. We felt that all of council should be involved in the final decisions. And it took more than those 4 meetings to get information. As you witnessed here, the Board of Trade has information. Rightfully so, the information they had was given to them was their 16 municipalities. We have a report here today that is far less than that in 16 municipalities. So when you have 2 reports and they do conflict, as Councillor Moore did say, sometimes you have to work a little further and get the information. I think I was probably attacked more than anybody in the last election on my integrity. I even had some councillors, subject to the mayor and her gala issues and community fund. The attacks on me by 2 of the candidates were on my integrity, on my being corrupt as chairman of planning, and doing only deals with, well, I was chair, sorry, half of the term of the grant was chair for the other half, because we do switch halfway through. But, and I even had, I mean, Grant called me too, that they were flabbergasted by what was being said out there. What really flabbergasted me was that the Star actually recommended one of those candidates. The one of those candidates that has an organization here in Brampton, and I don't care what you print now, doesn't really matter because I'm elected, so San, you can print whatever you want about me, I don't really give a damn. But that organization that the Star, or sorry, that gentleman that the Star recommended isn't an organization, and if you want to talk about, in my personal opinion, corrupt, It's had its funding cut from the feds, it's had its cut from the province, and we just got an email saying that the United Way has cut their funding to that organization of which this person is the president, because they weren't doing proper recording and weren't using the funds that they were supposed to. But it's okay, because the Star liked that guy, so that's who they did. Let's talk about integrity. Let's talk about some of the issues. You know, I get upset when a person on council, no matter who they are, gets attacked and unfairly, and gets attacked by other members of council unfairly, and makes quotes in the paper unfairly. But let's use an example, saying about the mayor, I believe it was the councillor saying, I have to watch, I'm getting upset. The mayor says that how the mayor's using staff. You know, John Sanderson, absolutely great guy, doing an absolute fantastic job with Salvation Army. The Tossatuni came out on a memo from his assistant. Is that using company staff? Absolutely. Is it wrong? Absolutely not. But if you use the scenario of one of your colleagues saying, then it is wrong. Councillor Moore, in her golf tournament for the arts, uses arts council staff. I believe they are funded by the city. I believe they are an arm's length and paid by the city. Does that mean that we're using city employees? When Councillor Moore spends $8,000 of taxpayers' money to go and get university courses, is that a waste of taxpayers' money? I don't know, but maybe an integrity commissioner should look into that. When Councillor Moore goes, and the reason I'm using, because she seems to be quoted in the paper quite a bit about this, when she goes to a very important gala on the weekend with members of a family that hold taxi licenses, and she puts herself on the taxi licensing committee to deal with licensing, is that a potential conflict? I don't know, but maybe an integrity commissioner should look at that. I will tell you, I raise a considerable amount of money in the city for the hospital. $810,000 I raised. I will ask to be the third review, because I want to make sure, after 24 years of raising money in the community, that I am squeaky clean. I believe as a councillor, it is our job not only to be politicians and do city work for the taxpayers, but also to help community organizations raise money. My assistant collects the checks. They come to her, she gives them to me, I take them to the hospital, and we give them to them. So I guess using my assistant, and she readily does that, and the checks just unfortunately have to come in during business hours. Does that mean now she will no longer be able to do that? If it is, it's unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate that the way we've been tainted in this issue of dealing with this and that. So, you know, I could go on for hours and name other instances where I think that people are probably, maybe they should be in conflict, but you know what, we all here, we try to do a job for our constituents and do it right. And the papers will print whatever they want, and they will twist it whatever way they want, because they will give the innuendos and they will say the possible wrongdoing. It happened to me with two candidates putting out press releases attacking me. You know what? I won the election to those guys out there that did that, and I'm going to do the job, continue to do the job the way I've done it in the past, with integrity and with transparency, and I will look after my constituents, and I don't care what you want to write. Thank you.
Councillor Hutton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think we're all agreed that it's like medicine, we need it. It's like insurance or the police or the fire department. They're absolutely essential, but we hope we never have to call upon them. So to say that this is something that may not be needed, I disagree with that. This is something we have to have, and we've talked about it, and I think everybody's in agreement that we do. Just how we go about it is a manner that we need to resolve sooner rather than later. And I have a couple of questions which may not get answered, a couple of questions for the city manager. First of all, excuse me, let me say this. None of this is about the Southwest Quadrant or the Mayor's Charity fundraising. This is about general procedures that will govern how this council conducts its business for the next term at least. I have a couple of questions for the city manager. First of all, the federal government has obviously had some of this protection for quite some time. They've been in a little bit of trouble lately because of lack of protection for whistleblower. And I want to make it abundantly clear, no matter what happens here, that if there are whistleblowers, and I'm sure there probably will be, that they are completely protected and their anonymity is completely governed. I want to be sure. I don't know if you can answer that now, or do you want to?
No, I can answer that now for you, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor. Section 223.5 subsection 1 is a duty of confidentiality required by an integrity commissioner where a municipality in their discretionary authority chooses to set up that office, that all manner of information that comes to them shall be preserved as secret, and that none of those things are disclosed, with the exception of those things that would be reported out to council in a public way as part of a general report to council as per the legislation.
Thank you. No, I want this to proceed as quickly as possible. I want it to happen. We need to get on with the business of running the city.
Yes, we do.
And so we need to get this done. I've this morning received an email from someone who's a constituent who's known to everybody here in the city, I'm sure. If you can bear with me for a second here. Again, and this is because of reading the story in the paper this morning. Thanks again for doing the right thing and standing up for honesty, integrity, and justice. I've attended a number of events the last 2 weeks, and I assure you that this topic is the forefront of people's minds. Most of these events were attended primarily by professional individuals. 100 days will only make everyone 100 times angrier and more resolved to get to the truth. And they thank me for my courage, but I really can't take credit for having any courage in this. All I want to say is, I agree. Why, after a year of negotiations with a committee of councillors, and you described the type of councillors you had on that committee. What was the words you described, Madam Mayor, to the people that you asked? The 4 people you asked, Madam Mayor, to be on that committee, you described them as...
Well, thank you, councillors. You know, in the legislation, we can only meet with a minimum of 5
I
people
understand
on
that.
this council, and that we chose people that we believe are focused on the best interests of the city. We couldn't include all of the members of council that we would like to have had in order to do our homework. We chose people that were prepared to go forward. We could have easily added other members of council, but the law precluded it.
Well,
Don't read anything further into it.
I feel a little, I wasn't asked to be in that committee, so I don't know what that says about me. But you might have had rotating committee members possibly if you didn't want to get under them, if you wanted to stay under the maximum allowed, but I feel a little, I always feel around here, the fact that I wasn't even considered, so I don't know what that says about my character or what you think about my character, but I always have put the city ahead. And my question mainly is, I want to support this, but why does it take 100 days after a year of negotiation? We have a lot of things to do. This is going to be hanging over our head until it's resolved, but we need to get on with the business of running the city. We have budget coming out for first thing in the new year. We have to get on with all that business. So my question, I really want to support this, but maybe why does it have to take 100 days? And if I can quote a great philosopher that I heard on television a couple of days ago, let's get her done. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. In response to your question, we believe within 100 days is very aggressive. You did hear the Board of Trade's concern that it wouldn't be enough time, but we're confident we can have a report before all of council with all of the information. Furthermore, there were delegations who withdrew today because they understood that the information would be coming back and they would speak at that meeting. Finally, as it relates to the budget, I bring you back to 2009 when we were at a workshop in Hockley Valley, and we spent the entire day discussing the budget. At the close of that meeting, we asked the question 3 times. Is that everything we need to add to the budget? We asked the question 3 times. Actually, just before that, Councillor Pelletier, you asked that we add to the budget the funds for the security policing in our neighborhood parks on a very, very tough year on our residents. We were wanting to be very scrutinizing what we were adding. At the conclusion of the meeting, of course, no member of council added anything further. We asked 3 times. At that point, we rose to get up and we found out there was a notice of motion to hire an integrity commissioner to be driven at the following council meeting. I think some people reacted and said, well, why wouldn't we have brought that up in the context of the budget discussion so we could put the funds in so we could start talking about it? Anyway, you're right, it does need a budget, and that's why this calls for a budget. We are doing budget in February. That original notice of motion, of course, was withdrawn because we couldn't file it. It was in conflict. So the 100 days, we believe, is an appropriate amount of time to bring within 100 days the information back to all members of council in this chamber, in a public environment, that any member of the public may come and speak to the recommendations and the information brought to us. I think it would have been highly unfair to bring a conclusion from a working group of council and simply expect all of council to support it without having the benefit of the information that we brought to you in terms of the difficulties experienced in other municipalities and the broad-ranging code of conducts out there. We simply report back to all of you, open and in public, the information that we have learned from our working group. I hope that answers your question, Councillor, and I know you and I have talked about this on a number of occasions, and you know I have the highest of respect, not just for you, but for everything about you. I refer to you as Superman, so I say that quite publicly. Perhaps we could move to the next speaker. Councillor Miles, then Councillor Moore, then Councillor Hames, and Councillor Sanderson, and then we could take the votes.
It's rigged.
I just lost my spot. Councillor Miles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just simply request that when we are actually looking at roles and responsibilities for code of conduct, that code of conduct would extend to all committees of the city where our city funds are being used. That members of those committees would be bound by the same kinds of codes of conduct that members of council are.
Good point.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I have to look at the clerk's screen. Mine is dark for a moment. Councillor Moore?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, I'd like to read my amendment to your motion. You can, at that point, declare it a conflict if you wish. But I'd like to amend the motion. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Callahan, that the December 15th, 2010 Mayor's Plan for Accountable Government recommendations be amended as follows. Number 1, that the report from Mayor Susan Fennell dated December 15th, 2010, re the Mayor's Plan for Accountable Government be received, and that the city manager be directed to immediately undertake the necessary steps to establish an accountability and transparency committee whose terms of reference shall include but not be limited to developing and recommending to council an updated comprehensive code of conduct and expense policy for members of council, developing and recommending a protocol for handling complaints from the public concerning members of council, investigating and benchmarking of best practices related to the discretionary authority of municipalities to appoint an integrity commissioner and make recommendations to council on the appropriate budget, governance structure, and implementation plan for retaining an integrity commissioner for the city of Brampton, reviewing the city's current policies and practices pertaining to council's code of conduct, confidentiality, accountability, and transparency, and make recommendations for improvement to council. Provide for a public consultation process. Make recommendations to council regarding the discretionary positions of ombudsman, lobbyist registrar, and auditor general. And further, that the membership of the Accountability Transparency Committee include the mayor or designate, 1 regional councillor, one city councillor, the city clerk, the city solicitor, members of the public, not less than 3 and no more than 5, with preference and consideration to individuals with a legal and/or ethics background, and that members of the public who participated in any way in the campaign of any local candidate during the 2010 municipal election shall be considered ineligible for consideration. And the delegation's point, perhaps they should be non-residents of Brampton. I don't know, that's, I guess, for consideration. And further, that the 2011 budget includes $75,000 for all costs related to the implementation of an accountability and transparency committee and appointment of an integrity commissioner for the 2011 budget year, and that the mayor continue advocacy efforts with the province of Ontario and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, seeking the establishment of one consistent, uniform code of conduct to be applicable to all municipalities across the province. And I've highlighted, I guess, in my comments, the difference between these two. I don't think they're particularly contrary, other than the roadmap that we use to get to where we're going. Rather than leaving it in the hands of the city manager, it does propose exactly the same model as what is working in the town of Vaughan. And so it's not necessary to reinvent the wheel. I have added a budget figure in there, which I consider to be a more than adequate and probably generous amount for the 2011 budget year, and it's based on conversation with David Nitkin from Ethics Scan, who prepared the draft report for AMO and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and looking at what other municipalities are putting in their budgets for the cost of integrity commissioner, and considering the size of Brampton and some of the issues that that other municipalities are facing in contrast to what Brampton is looking at. So I put that before you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'm ruling that that is not an amendment. In fact, it's contrary. My report does not limit. It requests a preliminary budget. I don't want to preclude that $75,000 is necessary or enough. I don't support it. It was said in the committee or in the report that we have some small committee bring back. I don't think it's up to members of council to scope and decide what's best to police ourselves. I stand by referring this to the city manager for investigation and benchmarking. This asks for a committee. This asks for a budget. This tries to do an implementation plan. I'm ruling it as contrary, so it would not be in order until my vote is taken, and then it won't be before the chair because it's contrary. Yes?
If the items that you say are not in order, can they be deleted from the motion, and the balance of the motion that's not contrary to the original motion by the mayor proceed?
Councillor, the motion.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, that's a question of the clerk.
Well, okay, but I'm making the ruling. I'm the head of council, but you can have the answer from the clerk. Embedded is elements of my motion with very distinct budget and a distinct committee. I say they're contrary. That's what the clerk can certainly respond.
Through the mayor, the chair has ruled that the motion as moved is contrary to the primary motion that's on the floor. So that's the ruling of the mayor.
The councillor can challenge the ruling. If the councillor wants to stand up and challenge the mayor and take a vote, let her do it.
With all due respect, the fact that you're saying it's presently as it stands, it's not in order. What I'm suggesting is there may be a way that the two motions can stand and whatever portions don't seem to be negative can be extracted. That's what I'm asking.
That's what's left. It's the same motion. Can we move down these speakers and then we'll be taking the main motion, Councillor?
The clerk.
Through the mayor, the clerk does not make any rulings. The clerk advises the chair and council.
So he's asking for your voice, Peter. That's what he's asking.
So, through the mayor, my advice at this point is irrelevant because the chair has ruled that the motion as stated is contrary.
You could.
Why bother? Like, seriously.
Okay, Councillor Hames?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a sad day for this council. Just because somebody decided to send something to the newspaper about the Mayor's Fund. And since that day, since what was written in the newspaper, and by the way, everyone who was called wasn't quoted in the newspaper because they didn't like what that person had to say. And now we're here sitting at a council meeting trying to get back to where we were before. The Mayor's Fund, and there's a whole list of people that have benefited greatly from that. The same as the community groups that Councillor Miles talked about earlier, how much they benefit from what we do as members of council to raise money, be it via golf tournaments or any other means, or just sending a sheet round this table for people to donate to various charities. And all of those good things are being lost in this. And we're sitting around this table arguing with each other on some of the great things that have happened in this city, and yet we're down to now deciding who has the better report. We get an amendment to that, which, by the way, is given to us in the middle of the meeting, exactly actually when it's going to come out, which to me is wrong. If you want a member of council to take a look at something that you're putting in on that day, give it to them ahead of time. I read my agendas before I come to council. I'd like to be able to read what someone's put in there too. I can't sit here and compare what's going on because I have to listen to all other members of council as they're speaking. I would ask us as a council to get back to being more civil to each other and come into this council, not so that we can have a one-up on somebody else, but come back to this council so we can be making the right decisions. And I gotta say this, the media reports, they should be ashamed of themselves. Printing exactly what somebody says without doing the investigation of what they're actually putting in there. And I'm sorry, but you know, I don't know how to describe it, but it's only half of the comments. Councillor Callahan, you said to me you were misquoted. Well, sure you were, because the little quote, you told me you were misquoted. You told me the night of inauguration, you walked over to me and said, by the way, I was misquoted in that article. You know what they do? They take little bits out of what you say. Are you saying you didn't speak to me about that? You did not speak to me on the evening.
I may have spoken to you that night. I didn't say that to you.
You know what? I don't know what else to say. All I can say is you be careful when you speak to the media because they cherry pick what they want to put out in their newspaper. And a lot of it is misinformation. It hasn't been researched, and it should be. And that's well, maybe it is a deadline, but the headline. We have some great things going on in this city, and we will come up with an integrity commissioner, whatever else it is we decide, in the right time frame and when we should. And to, you know, sitting here this morning, all the groups that came down with the awards that have been given, and all that gets lost when we start fighting the way we are on these. You know, no, that probably won't get in the paper, but the things we say will, and only parts of them. So I just hope that we can get back as a council speaking, talking about these things in where they should be, first of all, in committee. They should be at committee so that we can have those long, those long debates about them, and then take it to council if there are changes, you know, and not just playing up to media bites. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Hames. Councillor Sanderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just blown away by all of this. This all started, I guess, way back at the Nottawasaga, when we had the
Hockley Valley.
Hockley Valley, sorry. Nottawasaga was another party. But when we started back there, and Councillor Moore went around with the idea, the motion there, and to my knowledge, everybody was in favor. Just about everybody was in favor of it.
No.
Just about everybody was in favor of it. I remember Paul Plushy. You and I are standing there. Yep, you were looking at it, and you were saying, "Yeah, I can live with this." And then a bunch of us went off to bed, got up the next morning, and it's a different story. So obviously there was another meeting after we went to bed. But anyways, I think it's a great idea for the reasons that Councillor Miles said, that it keeps us honest. And I would certainly like to have somebody looking over my shoulder to tell me if I've done something wrong or I'm going down the wrong path. So anyways, I think that's a great idea. But I really take exception to the fact that you asked the 4 members of council that could stay focused. I just come through an election, my first re-election, and I won with a lot better margin than I got the time before. Therefore, the people in the area that you live in, Madam Mayor, think enough of me and respect me for doing the right job for them.
That's right.
And I didn't win that election without a whole lot of interference. So therefore, I really take exception to the comment that you made there regarding the 4 people that you felt could stay focused. And I would think that after meeting for over a year, it's already been said, that I would think that you would have the tools in the toolbox to get on with it. You know, all through the election, ever since the article went out in the newspaper about the cloud over Brampton, it's been a real storm. Every day, every single day, somebody asks a question of it. What is going on? We don't know what's going on. We need to know what's going on, and we need to get it done, so a number of people have said, so that we can get on with the business, looking after the constituents of the city of Brampton.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Callahan, then Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me start by saying this thing apparently all arose from my asking 3 legitimate questions. One of the treasurer, one at an office council meeting. Can't remember where the other one was, and there may have been a 4th. I was concerned. You know, as a lawyer, probably the only subject I flunked in law school was accounting. I've often said jokingly, I can't balance my own checkbook. But when I saw particularly, and you'll remember this, Mr. Treasurer, when the city financial statements came out, I inquired about where this money from the gala was in the statements, and you said to me that's not part of the statements. I figured, well, you're the treasurer of this city, you know a hell of a lot more about it than I do, so I just sort of let it slide. And I have to tell you, the feeling I have to get is, having asked those 4 questions, which I believe I did in the interests of my constituents, and not getting answers, being sort of left out there to hang, is the most helpless feeling you can have as a person who's trying to serve his community. There was no place to go. The answers I got was, in the one meeting of the city or the office committee meeting, when I raised the issue, somebody said to me, "You don't want to go there." Now, what the hell do you make of "you don't want to go there"? I mean, what is this? Is this a secret situation or what? I feel badly. I feel badly.
Who said that, Councillor?
I feel badly, Madam Mayor, because there is a cloud over this city. I respect the office of the mayor. You can check with the guy that called me the first time. I said that. I said I have the greatest respect for the office of the mayor. And then he asked me about these questions, and I told him exactly what I just told you. From then, it became a roller coaster. Not that I wanted a roller coaster to start, because quite frankly, regardless of what our comments around the table are, I like all of you. Now, some of you may not appreciate that. You may figure, I don't want to be liked by Callahan. In fact, at one point, and I won't mention who the council member was, but my wife and I were entering an event, and this person said to me, "You instigated this." I was terribly offended by that, particularly with my wife being there. I instigated it. I didn't instigate it at all. And in fact, if we had had an integrity commissioner, this would have all been cleared up by now, Madam Mayor. A lot of people, including yourself, are suffering as a result of this problem, and you didn't fix it very well, because I have a number of members in the legal community. I ran it by them to see what the hell was going on, and they said it doesn't meet the smell test. When you don't open up the books for God knows what, you wonder. I mean, it makes people wonder. You may have had perfectly legitimate reasons for doing that, and I respect that, but still, the public out there expects us to be like Caesar's wife, beyond suspicion. In terms of our democratic system, not only must justice be done, but it has to appear to be done. And it's particularly important for those people out there who voted for us, put their trust in us, and talk to us about taxes. Some of them may have been in dispute, I don't know, but you have to have an answer for them. And I can tell you that I went to doors where, Madam Mayor, they asked about whether they should vote for you. I didn't say yes or no, frankly. I could have, if I wanted to malign you, I could have said, no, don't vote for her. But I didn't, because I respect the office of the mayor. But we've got to get over this. We've got to get over this situation. The best way to do it, the safest way to do it, in my mind, is to adopt an integrity commissioner. It doesn't have to be full-time. You can hire a lawyer by the hour. If you want a good one, it'll probably be $800 an hour. If you get one that's like me, probably $150 to do it. And I'm not looking for the job, frankly. But we have to get over this. If we don't get over this, this council will go no place. It'll be a 6-5 vote for the rest of the season for the 4 years. And if any of you go back to the polls, I may not go back, but if you go back to the polls and they say, well, what the hell did you do over the 4 years? Well, we had votes. How'd the votes go? Well, they were 6-5. Oh, okay. And whose side were you on? We're on the 5. We couldn't get anything done. They're not going to be just unhappy with the people who lost the vote. They're going to be equally as unhappy with you, Madam Mayor, with all respect, and with everybody else in here who played this political game. And that's exactly what it is. It's a political game where people, good people, are being hurt as a result of things that are being said. I don't subscribe to it. I think it's terrible. It makes me feel bad as a family member with things coming out in the paper, etc. It should feel bad for all of you.
Stop
Well,
talking to the paper.
There you are.
But it still comes out.
Stop talking to the
No,
paper.
but there you are. Well, if we don't have an integrity commissioner to investigate whether good things are happening or bad things are happening, how the hell do you get at it? And I go back to where I started. The times I asked about the money that was involved in these various things and got answers, I sort of hung my head down. I said, well, I guess that's the way business is done. And then I asked it again, not to be provocative, just asked it again because I looked through the financial statements, didn't see anything there. And I had my good friend Mo there giving me advice. I trust him, and I'm sure I still trust him. He's an intelligent man. He said that's not part of our operation. That's right. So I get that kind of information, and I'm out there thinking to myself, both as a city councilor who swore on oath that I would try to look after and tend the public's income. I did the same thing as a lawyer, and I've always tried to live up to it. And for some reason, this nagged at me. And I think the last time I asked that question was just previously before the election. It was not done in any provocative way to help one or other of the candidates. In fact, I can tell you the mayor will remember one night, after the two candidates for mayor had been, put their nomination papers in, I called her, and she came over to my house, and we sat on the porch. Must have been warm. And my wife was calling me in for dinner. And I said, Susan, this guy, referring to the guy that was the,
Anyway,
whatever his name was, Haynes. I said, he's got all these people working for him who are investigators. I said, I hope to God you've got everything in order.
I do.
And I think I can't remember this for fact, but I think I said to you, do you have it in a charitable corporation? I mentioned the fact that if you didn't, Revenue Canada would be most interested in the income that was received from it. You went away happy, I went away happy, figuring, well, that's all looked after. And lo and behold, here we are. Okay. Finally, I'd like to ask Sandra. I'm curious as to when you say I said that and what I said, because I don't remember it. What did I say exactly?
We were at the reception
Yeah,
for the inauguration,
right.
the reception just for council members and their guests.
What exactly did I say?
You actually came over to me and you said, by the way, I was misquoted in the newspaper.
No.
I did.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying,
You're a liar.
I'm not calling you a liar at all. I'm just saying it didn't happen. How's that?
Well, let's say the
In any
council
event-
remembers hearing it and you don't
In
remember
any event-
saying it, so let's move on.
Well, it didn't. It didn't. Okay?
You didn't speak to me, so you didn't speak to me at all at that reception?
I could have spoken to a lot of people that night.
Council, let's stay on.
I can tell you this much, that because of some...
Council, could we please stay on? We're voting on moving forward
All
on
right.
an integrity
Okay,
commissioner.
fair enough.
Isn't that good?
And finally, Madam Mayor, as Winston Churchill said, democracy is not the best we've got, but it's the only thing we have. And so democracy has to be beyond suspicion. Whether it's true or false or whatever, this thing has to be cleared up. And we have to sit down as adults and clear it up in some fashion and avoid the necessity of it happening again by having an independent commissioner. If that were the case, you could have taken that to the independent commissioner, Sandra, when it was fresh in your mind. If you say I said it, and maybe I did, I don't know. You could have said, well, here's what he said. Maybe he could have taken me to task for doing it, for saying it. But I think we really have to get on with this issue. It's
Thank you,
getting to the point where I said in the newspaper last night, or night before, that I was incensed that I was not made aware of these meetings that were going on. Now, the mayor indicates that at the seniors council meeting, she said something about it, and you mentioned it as well. I don't recall that. Okay, just a second. I don't recall that. But if you ask the other members who perhaps didn't hear that statement, they didn't know about it until the Friday before. So we weren't kept in the loop. We didn't know what was going on. And that, to me, is dangerous. That's how you get into these difficulties. And I think if you check with all of the other members that were not on that committee and ask them if they knew about this meetings that were taking place with the mayor, they'd tell you no. So there it is.
Well, if you saw my campaign brochure, it was in there.
Well, I wasn't reading your campaign bill.
Thank you,
Would have been
Councillor.
nice.
Councillor Gibson.
Got a copy?
There you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to step back a bit. I want to go forward, but I want to step back a bit, because I don't understand why this conversation has gone to everybody's fundraising. This was brought up a year and a half ago, whenever it was. There was nothing in the papers about anybody's fundraising. Nothing. So I don't know why people seem to want to insinuating that we're talking about this because of Mayor Fennell's or mine or Councilor Plessy's or Councilor Miles or anybody else's. It had nothing to do with it. And somebody said, I don't care what the press say. That's had nothing to do with it. It was out long before this stuff was in the press. The Integrity Commission was in front of us, or an opportunity to do it. And somebody said, it wasn't you, Madam Mayor, somebody said that, well, the four councillors were all in favor of it. Councillor Moore can tell you, I told her I wasn't in favor. I was in favor of opening up to look at what it would be about, and that was it. And I told Councillor Moore, if this comes up and says, it's gonna cost us $500,000 to do it, I'm gonna say no, and she said, well, so would I. But we turned down the opportunity to get all the information in front of us, and that's what I wanted to do back then. I don't know why we've gone backwards here and started attacking each other over fundraising, because that's not what this was about, in my opinion. Well, because you people here around the table have all brought it out that way, and maybe because you're, yeah, you're right, Counselor, maybe because we're reacting to what's in the press, but that's not what this is about. I don't remember a council member ever saying, well, forget it, I'm not even gonna go there. But, it's easy to blame the press on what they put out there, but they put out there what the information they see and what's fed to them, and, we all had bad elections, and not just in Brampton. It was across the GTA. You talk to, and I have, people in Caledon, people in Mississauga, well, I haven't talked to anybody in Toronto, I'll be honest, I haven't talked to anybody in Toronto, but I read the papers. They all had bad elections. There seems to be this thing going around that everybody seems to, in order to win an election, you have to attack the incumbent. Why? I'm not sure. I know I was attacked. I mean, I lost 300 signs in one night, gone, completely disappeared. But, I decided to take the high road and not go out, well, I did file a police report. Maybe I didn't take the high road, I filed a police report.
Your sign maker took them.
But,
Put a new order.
This should be about whether we want an integrity commissioner or not, and personally, I do. And it's unfortunate, I wanted to get to the amendment, because I do agree with some of the amendment stuff here, but as Councillor Moore knows, I didn't agree with putting the council members on it. I would prefer to put 5 people from the public on this, and let the public deal with it. And I do disagree with it should be people from outside of Brampton. I think we're a big enough city. I think there's some very good people out there that we can select that have some very good integrity in Brampton. And I think it mentions in here that they would have a law degree or some type of expertise in this field. I would have preferred to do that. I'm in a dilemma now because I didn't really agree 100% with the amendment, but I don't also agree with punting it off to the city manager. I think we're putting her in an awful position, and staff in an awful position to do that. So, I don't know. I wish we wouldn't regress back and start attacking each other because of things that we haven't done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I want to point out, because I think it's relevant for the public record, I draw your attention to page H2-2 to remind council the good work done in November of 2007, because there's been a sense here that, what can people do? There is a public complaints process in place. If you go on the City of Brampton website, brampton.ca, in the left column, you can click on the words accountability and transparency. Staff have provided a synopsis of all the relevant legislation in place. There is the Municipal Act. We took an oath of office at the beginning of each term. There is the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act that binds council. There's the Municipal Freedom of Information. The City of Brampton Purchasing Bylaw, which was amended as it relates to the procurement of special services in response, in part, to the Bellamy report, to allow no contact with elected officials during any procurement, or you will be disqualified. The procedural bylaw, conduct at council meetings, disallows any disrespect of members of council, either through BlackBerry or through oral statements. The corporate values statement. We have the corporate roles, council roles and responsibilities, which we update at the commencement of every term of council since I've been mayor. The council compensation committee, the corporate expense policy, human resources policies for recruitment and retention of employees, including family members. Council, we've said, and I've heard you all say through your comments, we need an integrity commissioner. This report brings you that path. We've said we need to get rid of this cloud over Brampton that originated during an election campaign. Unfortunately, I have personally today referred the matter of the mayor's fundraising gala for the integrity commissioner process to have a full review. I think it's unfortunate that we've been talking about fundraising and actively helping the community. There is no question that every year in your corporate policy, you review those areas where you will support and buy a table or a foursome. You've had 6 such occasions come to this council in the spring of each year with that corporate policy. At no time in the motion, in fact, the report comes through Development and Marketing, Councillor Moore's committee, at no time through that process did anybody say, just before we purchase a table or we become involved in the Mayor's Gala, where does the money go? Never asked. Councillor Moore, you've never, ever asked. I know Councillor Callahan certainly did at budget. Councillor Miles said, Councillor, that's not a city event. I'm proud it's not a city event. It's run by volunteers and people outside of the community, so we don't use taxpayers' money. And there was no follow-up to say, Mayor, please explain this to me or to any member of the board. I know that members of council were asked by members of the board, do you have any questions? Would you like an opportunity? And in fact, that was declined just recently. I want to make it very, very clear that my goal today was to move forward on an integrity commissioner. And I'm asking for a unanimous vote. Let's show the public. Let's move forward. Let's not have these debates here. Let's push them to the integrity commissioner when they're in place and let that independent third party make the air clear once and for all. It has not been appreciated. Seeing this city's name discredited in a major newspaper, not just in the GTA, oh no, throughout North America. We have had successes in rapid transit, a debt-free municipality. When I ran for mayor in the year 2000, the Board of Trade at the time said, we need to get Brampton in the major newspapers. I said, I'll do what I can. Certainly didn't mean this. I thought we might have reported on being a city of 500,000 that delivered bus rapid transit, and oh, by the way, paid for. That we had success when we go to Ottawa and bring money home, that we talk about the serious issues of homelessness, that we talk about the needs of this community and the infrastructure deficit affecting Brampton and all communities. Yes, I too went door to door in every one of your wards, every one. And I was reelected in every poll in the city of Brampton because after 22 years in office, people know Susan Fennell as a hard worker, as an honest person, as a person that works with integrity. I wish you raised the questions in October why 8 weeks later I believe you're going to have disclosure. Had you asked in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, why even 2010, 8 weeks later, you may have known about, you did know about the grand Steinway piano in the opening of the Rose Theatre. What you don't know, or what you didn't know because I wasn't here with Corplast checks bragging in front of council, was the following year the full placement of all chairs and table stands and large pieces of equipment for every orchestra in the city to have the free use. It's the property of the Rose Theatre. You didn't know that. You didn't ask, and I didn't brag. You didn't know we bought a second Steinway piano, so the youth orchestras and all the groups don't have to pay a fee as they struggle as a community group to be successful. You didn't know that. And I have never been a person to brag. I haven't been out here telling you about the brand new Salvation Army soup kitchen bus, $200,000 bought and paid for by the Mayor's Golf over and above the pledge of $100,000 a year to match the mayor for $1 million, that has attracted over $14 million in comparable donations. No, I don't bring that to the council table. Why? Because I'm busy being the mayor, working on the issues that I was elected to work on. But when people contact me for help in my capacity as mayor, I always try to find a way. And I'm blessed in this city to be surrounded by people and volunteers that when called upon, they will help to find a way too. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of that. So I want to put this publication. I said it during the campaign when it became part of the, we can't pick on the mayor for neglecting transit, got that in spades, open a new Rose Theater, got that, a new senior center, new youth center, mayor's youth team. I mean, we are firing on all cylinders here in Brampton. And you know what? We're doing it unanimously as a team, and I say that in every speech I give. I give every member of council credit and say together, when good citizens, I'm not going to quote Winston Churchill and everybody else, I'll quote myself. When good citizens meet good government, good cities become great. Brampton, you are on the verge, you're on the threshold. It's your time to shine. We have lands for employment. We have lands for good development. Did we get it in the major newspaper, our new places of worship policy? First in Canada, that had this council had the guts to mix religion and politics, but we did it because it was right to do. And it took us a few years. It wasn't in 100 days. It took us a few years, and we were proud of that. And those press releases go out the door too. But oh no, we're going to talk about the debt-free city with the most incredible, most modern bus rapid transit system in a city of this size in North America, environmentally friendly buses, bioelectric diesel. Honest to goodness, we couldn't get that in the major newspaper, so people would say, I know where Brampton is. You are totally devoted to transit. That takes courage today because it's not inexpensive. No, instead, we had the rhetoric of trying to invent an issue because, good gravy, this council, by its own complete re-election, has been supported by the residents of this city. It's been unfortunate. That's why I'm here today with this Integrity Commissioner report, because we need to move forward. Let me say, that's why I say today, move the issue over there, clear the air. The office of the mayor in the city of Brampton will continue to function with the highest integrity as it has since Susan Fennell became the mayor. And I will continue to conduct myself as I have every day. I have nothing to hide. This was a good news story. And I want to say that when residents came to me when I was first elected and said, Mayor, you should have a golf tournament. They're quite proud. I said, listen, I don't even golf. But if you want to, go ahead. You know the lady Janet Biggert, bless her soul. And they've run this entirely on their own. At first for the United Way campaign, and then switching to Brampton Civic Hospital, and the remainder saved up and used for the Salvation Army. Did I come and tell you that here? I'm sorry. Sorry, I told the Salvation Army when they needed the down payment on their new chassis to build the bus they needed, because we didn't have one in Brampton to serve the needs of the people in a way that we were borrowing other people. I guess I should have told you. I guess I should have them here with Corplast statements, or Corplast checks. That's not my style. I just get the job done. And I ask you today to move this report forward. Let's get back to being the council we were known for. People would say, there's problems all around, but by God, you guys in Brampton, you passed the development charges bylaw. Oakville got in the paper, nothing about Brampton. Ours are higher. Pretty gutsy, but we did the right thing for the taxpayers. Tough to get that in the paper too. So at council, I'm calling on the clerk for a recorded vote, and I am going to encourage us as we go forward to once again come together, meet, talk, discuss, build consensus, and let's show the citizens of Brampton they made the right decision in returning each and every one of the members of this council, because I think the public made a good decision for each and every member of this council. I'd like to call for the vote. Councillor Callahan.
Mayor, you said that an issue was invented. I hope that you're not saying that I invented an issue.
Oh, absolutely not, Councillor. Absolutely not. You made it very clear to me on numerous occasions that this wasn't your issue at all, and you quite correctly said to me, you better have everything properly in order because, you know, well, you said it earlier, and I said, I have absolutely nothing to be concerned with, and I have nothing to be concerned with but the pride in sharing what the community has done, the volunteers and those working on these fundraisers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Members of council, a recorded vote has been requested on the motion as set out in the mayor's head of council report. All those in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the... Showing in favor of the motion is Regional Councillor Miles, Regional Councillor Hames, Regional Councillor Moore, Regional Councillor Paleshi, Mayor Fennell, City Councillor Hutton, Regional Councillor Sprovieri, City Councillor Dillon, Regional Councillor Sanderson, City Councillor Callahan,
Council, let's mark this as the moment that we come back together in the spirit of how we do business. All rise and a recorded, oh, sorry, that's your word.
request for a recount, a revote has been taken, so members in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor, Councillor Miles, Councillor Hames, Councillor Moore, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Paleshi, Mayor Fennell, Councillor Hutton, Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Callahan. Madam Mayor, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, Cal. Recess for 5 minutes, please. Yeah, there's a few items left.